Federal agencies hire people directly. Chapter 1. A U.S. Federal Agency Job Guide. Find federal agency websites. usa.gov/agency-index. usa.gov/branches-of-government. usa.gov/agencies/federal/executive.html, links to all executive branch offices. usa.gov/agencies/federal/judicial.html. usa.gov/agencies/federal/legislative.html. usa.gov/agencies/state_and_territories.html. Some federal department and agency job websites. ars.usda.gov/afm/hrd/vacancy, Agricultural Research Service. anl.gov/opa/optis.html, Argonne National Laboratory. bnl.gov/jobs/jobs.html, Brookhaven. census.gov/main/www/employop.html, Census Bureau. cia.gov/employment/ciaeindex.htm, Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. cftc.gov/vacancies.html, Commodity Futures Trading Commission. cpsc.gov/about/personnel.html, Consumer Product Safety Commission. worldwidehr.hq.dla.mil, Defense Logistics Agency. usda.gov/da/employ.html, Department of Agriculture, USDA. doc.gov, Department of Commerce. hrsc.osd.mil/empinfo.htm, Department of Defense Human Resource Services. info.er.usgs.gov/doi/avads/index.html, Department of Interior. Of the Interior Automated Vacancy Announcement System, AVADS. usdoj.gov/careers/careers.html, Department of Justice. dole.gov 8001/vacancy.nsf/ Open Database, Department of Labor. state.gov/www/careers, Department of State. econ.ag.gov/what's news/jobs, economics. epa.gov/epah RIST, Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. jobs.faa.gov, Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. fcc.gov/jobs, Federal Communications Commission, FCC. fbi.gov/employment/employ.htm, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. uscourts.gov/vacancies/01.html, Federal Court Judicial Vacancies. fec.gov/pages/jobs.htm, Federal Elections Commission. fema.gov/home/career/career.htm, Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. bos.frb.org/jobs.htm, Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. frbc.org/frinfo/hr/jobs.html, Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. clev.frb.org/bsr/jobs.htm, Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. dallasfed.org/career_op/career_op.html, Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. woodrow.mpls.frb.fed.us/info/career/index.html, Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. ny.frb.org/jobops, Federal Reserve Bank of New York. rich.frb.org/pe/jobs.htm, Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. frbsf.org/frbsf/employ/index.html, Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. fnalpubs.fanal.gov/employ/jobs.html, Fermi National Accelerator Lab. gao.gov/jobs/vacancy.htm, General Accounting Office, GAO. access.gpo.gov/employment/index.html, government printing office. usitc.gov/jobs.htm, International Trade Commission. lbl.gov/lbl-documents/cjos, Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory. llnl.gov/llnl/02 employment/02 employ 97.shtml, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. web.archive.org/20021011450366/gopher/marvel.loc.gov/11/employee/employ, Library of Congress. hr.lanl.gov/html/jobs, Los Alamos National Laboratory. huminfo.arc.nasa.gov/NASA vcenters.html, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. nara.gov/nara/employ.html, National Archives and Records Administration. rdc.noaa.gov/weebvase/index.html, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. nps.gov/pub_af/jobs.htm, National Park Service. nsf.gov/home/chart/work.htm, National Science Foundation. nsa.gov/8080/programs/employ, National Security Agency, NSA. ntsb.gov/vacancies/listing.htm, National Transportation and Safety Administration. ornell.gov/employment.html, Oak Ridge National Laboratory. whitehouse.gov/wh/omb/html/ombhome.html, number sign employ, Office of Management and Budget. usbeta.gov/web/offices/ac/ahrpa/ohr/employment, Patent and Trademark Office. peacecorps.gov/www/hrm/hrm1.html, Peace Corps. sec.gov/assec/sec/jobs.htm, Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. si.edu/organizes/offices/ohr/start.htm, Smithsonian. airforce.com/text-site/career/index.html, U.S. Air Force. U.S. Military Agency Job Websites. gormy.com, U.S. Army. cpol.army.mil, Army Civilian Vacancy Openings. dot.gov/dodnfo/uscg/hq/recruit/recruit.htm, U.S. Coast Guard. usmc.mil/www.mcrc/mcrc.htm, U.S. Marines. usema.edu/cpo, U.S. Military Academy. naden.navy.mil/jobenfo, U.S. Naval Academy. usno.navy.mil/jobs.html, U.S. Naval Observatory. navyjobs.com, U.S. Navy. va.gov/jobs/index.htm, Veterans Administration. Federal agencies that do their own hiring. Even though the OPM is the HQ for the job hunt, many agencies hire totally on their own, and the ones that go through OPM often hire a lot of their own people directly, so you have to find every agency relevant to your field, check them out and see what's going on with them. Each government agency has an office within it which is responsible for personnel. If you want to know about future employment prospects, the interview process and other questions about civil service, these questions can be answered by these agencies also. If you have special skills, you could contact the various personnel offices in the many federal government departments until you get a hit. The following listing will give you an idea of the range of federal agencies and where you might best fit into a future employment opportunity. USA.gov. Government Executive Magazine. 1501 M. St. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20005. govexcc.com. Action. 1100 Vermont Avenue. NW number 5101. Washington, D.C. 20525. 202-606-5135, 202-606-5000R. Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts. 202-273-2777. uscourts.gov. African Development Foundation. 1400 IST. Washington, D.C. 20005. 202-673-3916. adj.gov. Agency for International Development. 2401 E Street, NW. Number 1127. Washington, D.C. 20523. USAID.gov. Agriculture. U.S. Department of 14th Saint and Independence Ave. SW. Washington, D.C. 20250. 202-720-2436. 202-720-5625. USDA.gov. Agriculture Research Service Job Line. Beltsville, MD. 301-344-2288R. 301-344-1124. USDA.gov. Air Force. Pentagon. Washington, D.C. 20310. 703-693-6550R. 703-545-6700. dtic.dla.mil/Air Force. airforce.com. af.mil. Airline Jobs Bank. Office of Labor Management Programs. U.S. Department of Labor. 200 Constitution Avenue. NW. Number N5416. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-219-4473. DOL.gov. Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms Bureau. 650 Massachusetts Avenue. NW. Number 4150. Washington, D.C. 20226. 202-927-8610. 202-927-8423. USDOJ.gov/ATF. Appalachian Regional Commission. 1666 Connecticut Avenue. NW. Number 5127. Washington, D.C. 20314. 202-761-0534. ARC.gov. Army Department. Hoffman Civilian Personnel Office. Hoffman Building 2, Number 1S39. 200 Stovall Street. Alexandria, Virginia 22332-0800. Army.mil. Army. Pentagon. Washington, D.C. 20310. 703-545-6700. 703-695-2589. 703-693-7911. Army.mil. Gourmet.com. Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. 20th Street and Constitution Avenue, NW. Washington, D.C. 20551. FRB.gov. FederalReserve.gov. Bureau of Apprenticeship and Training. Employment and Training Administration. U.S. Department of Labor. 200 Constitution Avenue. NW. Number N4649. Washington, D.C. 20210. DOL.gov. DOLATA.gov. Highly Skilled Jobs Apprenticeship. Bureau of National Affairs. 202-452-4335. BNA.gov. Bureau of Prisons. 800-347-7744. BOP.gov. Bureau of Public Debt. U.S. Department of the Treasury. 200 3rd St. Parkersburg, West Virginia 26101. 304-480-6144-R. Trees.gov. Census Bureau. U.S. Department of Commerce. Number 1412, Building 3. Washington, D.C. 20233. 301-457-1722. 301-763-5537. Census.gov. Centers for Disease Control. Epidemic Intelligence Service. Epidemiology Program Office. Atlanta, Georgia 30333. 404-639-3588. CDC.gov. Central Intelligence Agency. Office of Personnel. POG 12727. Arlington, Virginia 22209-8727. 800-562-7242. 800-336-2163. 703-351-2028. 703-482-1100. odci.gov/CIA. CIA.gov. Commission on Civil Rights. 624 9th Street NW. Washington, D.C. 20425. 800-552-6843. 202-376-8513, Complaint Referral in D.C. 202-376-8116, TDD. 202-376-8128, Publications. 202-376-8312, Public Affairs. USCCR.gov. Commerce, U.S. Department of 14th and Constitution of A. NW. Number 1069. Washington, D.C. 20230. 202-482-5257. 202-482-5138-R. DOC.gov. Commission of Fine Arts. 441 F St. NW. Number 312. Pension Building. Washington, D.C. 20001. 202-504-2200. Arts.gov. Commodity Futures Trading Commission. 202-254-3346. CFTC.gov. Controller of the Currency. 250 E St. SW. Washington, D.C. 20219. 202-874-4490. Trees.gov. Consumer Product Safety Commission. 5401 West Bard Avenue. Bethesda, Maryland 20207. 301-504-0100. 301-504-0580. CPSC.gov. Defense Intelligence Agency. 200 MacDill Boulevard. Washington, D.C. 20340. 800-525-4629. DIA.mil. Defense Intelligence Agency. Civilian Staffing Operations Division, DPH2. 3100 Clarendon Boulevard. Arlington, Virginia 22201-5322. DIA.mil. Defense, U.S. Department. Pentagon. Washington, D.C. 20301. 703-614-4066. DefenseLink.mil. Defense Logistics Agency. Staff Director, Civilian Personnel. Cameron Station. Alexandria, Virginia 22304-6100. DefenseLink.mil. Defense Logistics Agency. 8725 John Kingman Road. FT. Belvoir, Virginia 22060. 703-767-7100. DefenseLink.mil. Dental Health Professions. Health Resources and Services Administration. 5600 Fishers Lane No. 8-101. Rockville, Maryland 20857. 301-443-6854. HRSA.gov. Department of Commerce. Patent and Trademark Office. 703-305-4221. USBTA.gov. Department of Labor. 800-366-2753. DOL.gov. Department of the Interior. 800-336-4562. DOI.gov. Disease Control and Environmental Health. Training and Laboratory Program Office. Centers for Disease Control. 1600 Clifton Road. Atlanta, Georgia 30333. 404-639-2142. CDC.gov. Displaced Homemakers Job Network. 1625K. ST. NW. Number 300. Washington, D.C. 20006. 202, 467-6346. Division of Public Health Professions. Health Resources and Services Administration. 5600 Fishers Lane No. 8-101. Rockville, Maryland 20857. 301-443-6854. HRSA.gov. Health Professions and Training Programs. Education Department. Personnel Office, number 1156. 400 Maryland Avenue Southwest. Mailbox 4645. Washington, D.C. 20202. 202-401-0553. 202-401-0559R. ed.gov. Employment and Training Administration. U.S. Department of Labor. 200 Constitution Avenue. NW. Number S2322. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-219-6871. DOL.gov. Work-Based Learning. Employment Standards Administration. U.S. Department of Labor. 200 Constitution Avenue. NW. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-219-7516. DOL.gov/DOL/ESA. Environmental Protection Agency. 401 M. St. S.W. Washington, D.C. 20460. 202-586-8851. 202-260-5055. 202-260-2090. EPA.gov. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. 1801 L. St. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20507. 202-663-4337. EEOC.gov. Executive Office of the President. 725 17th St. Northwest. Washington, D.C. 20503. 202-395-3000. Whitehouse.gov. Executive Personnel and Management. Development Division. Office of Personnel Management. 1121 Vermont Avenue NW No. 200. Washington, D.C. 20415. 202-606-0889. OPM.gov. This office provides interagency seminars on dealing with members of Congress and other courses on management and development. Export-Import Bank of the U.S. 811 Vermont Avenue. NW. Washington, D.C. 20571. 202-565-3300. XM.gov. Farm Credit Administration. 1501 Farm Credit Drive. McLean, Virginia 22102. 703-883-4135. FCA.gov. Federal Aviation Administration. 800 Independence Avenue, SW. Washington, D.C. 20591. 202-267-8008. FAA.gov. Federal Bureau of Investigation. 9th and Pennsylvania Ave. NW. Washington, D.C. 20535. 202-324-6223. 202-324-3000. FBI.gov. Federal Communications Commission. 1919 M. St. N.W. Number 212. Washington, D.C. 20554. 202-418-0130. 202-418-0500. FCC.gov. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Number G4000. 550 17th Street Northwest. Washington, D.C. 20429-9990. 202-393-8400. FDIC.gov. Federal Election Commission. 999 E. St. N.W. Number 236. Washington, D.C. 20463. 800-424-9530. FEC.gov. Federal Emergency Management Agency. 500 C. St. S.W. Washington, D.C. 20472. 202-646-3962. 202-646-4600. FEMA.gov. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. 202-219-2791. Federal Highway Administration. 400 7th St. Southwest. Washington, D.C. 20590. 202-366-4000. FWA.dot.gov. Federal Job College Hotline. 900-990-9200. Federal Maritime Commission. 800 N Capital NW. Washington, D.C. 20573. 202-523-5773. FMC.gov. Federal National Mortgage Association. 202-752-5627. Federal Reserve System. 20th and C. St. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20551. 202-452-3880. FRB.gov. Federal Trade Commission. 600 Pennsylvania Avenue, NW. Washington, D.C. 20580. 202-326-2021. 202-326-2020R. 202-326-2222. FTC.gov. Food and Drug Administration. 5600 Fishers Lane, Rockville, Maryland 20857. 301-443-1544. FDA.gov. Foreign Affairs Recreation Association. Department of State Building. Number 2928. 320 21st St. Northwest. Washington, D.C. 20520. 202-530-5752. Fax, 202-530-5657. Fararec.org. Helps employees in foreign affairs with sports and recreation activities. Forest Service. POG 96090. Washington, D.C. 20090. 703-235-2730. fs.fed.us. General Accounting Office. Office of Recruitment. Number 1050. 441 G Street, NW. Washington, D.C. 20548. 202-512-8361, 202-512-4900, GAO.gov, General Services Administration, 18th and F. St. N.W. Number 1100. Washington, D.C. 20405, 202-501-0398, 202-708-5082, GSA.gov, Government Printing Office, N. Capital and H. St. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20401, 202-512-0000, 202-512-1198, GPO.gov, Health and Human Services, 5600 Fishers Lane, number 1748, Rockville, Maryland 20857, 301-443-1230R, 301-443-6900, 301-443-5407, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services, 301-443-1230, Health Resources and Services Administration, HHS.gov, Health and Human Services, U.S. Department, 31 Center Drive, Bethesda, Maryland 20892, 301-496-2403, HHS.gov, Health and Human Services Department, Office of the Secretary Personnel Office, Cohen Building, number 1037, 330 Independence Avenue Southwest, Washington, D.C. 20201, HHS.gov, Health Resources and Services Administration, 5600 Fishers Lane, Rockville, Maryland 20857, 301-443-2086, HRSA.gov, House of Representatives, Cannon House Office Building, number 263, Washington, D.C. 20515, 202-226-6731, House.gov, Housing and Urban Development, U.S. Department of 451 7th St. Southwest, Washington, D.C. 20410, 202-708-0408, 202-708-3202R, HUD.gov, Immigration and Naturalization Service, 425 I St. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20536, 202-514-3088, 202-514-2000, ins.doj.gov, ins.gov, Interior, U.S. Department of 1849 C. St. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20240, 202-208-6702, 202-501-9630, Bureau of Mines, 703-358-1743, Fish and Wildlife, 202-208-7581, Indian Affairs, 202-208-4649, National Parks, 202-208-4648, Park Service, DOI.gov, NPS.gov, National Parks, Internal Revenue Service, 1111 Constitution Avenue, NW, Washington, D.C. 20224, 202-622-6310, IRS.gov, Job Accommodation Network, 809 Allen Hall, Morgantown, West Virginia 26505, 800-526-6200, 800-526-7234, 800-526-6200, 800-526-6200, 7234, TDD 202-376-6200, 202-376-6205, TDD janweb.icdi.wvu.edu, jobcorps.org, 800-733 jobs. The Judicial Branch. Except the Administrative Office of the United States Courts and the United States Claims Court. Personnel Office. United States Supreme Court Building. 1 First Street NE. Washington, D.C. 20543. uscourts.gov. Justice, U.S. Department of 10th Saint and Constitution Ave. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20530. 202-514-6818-R. USDOJ.gov. Justice Department. Personnel Office. Number 603. 633 Indiana Avenue Northwest. Washington, D.C. 20531. USDOJ.gov. Labor, U.S. Department of 200 Constitution Avenue. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-219-6677. 202-606-2700-R. 800-366-2753. DOL.gov. The Legislative Branch. Including Senators and Representatives. Offices, Library of Congress and the Capitol. For inquiries about employment at the House, Senate, or Capitol, contact either the House or Senate. House.gov. Senate.gov. The Library of Congress. Employment Office, LM 107. James Madison Memorial Building. 101 Independence Avenue Southeast. Washington, D.C. 20540. 202-707-5000. 202-707-4315-R. lcweb.loc.gov. loc.gov. Marine Corps. Number 1215. Washington, D.C. 20380. 703-614-1046. usmc.mil. National Archives and Records Administration. 800-273-2777. nara.gov. National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Number 5017 FOB 6. 400 Maryland Avenue Southwest. Washington, D.C. 20546. 202-358-2215. 202-358-0000. 202-358-2810. nasa.gov. National Art Gallery. Washington, D.C. 20594. 202-842-6282. 202-842-6298-R. nga.gov. National Endowment for the Arts. 1100 Pennsylvania Avenue. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20506. 202-682-5405. arts.endow.gov. National Endowment for the Arts. Creative Writers Publishing Grants. Literature Program. 1100 Pennsylvania Avenue. N.W. Number 723. Washington, D.C. 20506. 202-682-5451. arts.endow.gov. Grants range from $2,000 to $50,000. Literature Translators Opportunities. National Endowment for the Humanities. 1100 Pennsylvania Avenue. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20506. 202-606-8438. neh.fed.us. National Federation of Federal Employees. 1016, 16th St. Northwest. Number 300. Washington, D.C. 20036. National Fisheries Center. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Box 700. Kenaysville, West Virginia 25430. 304-725-8461, EXT 5333. FWS.gov. Fish Husbandry Training Academy. National Gallery of Art. 202-842-6298. NGA.gov. National Institutes of Health. Laurel, MD. 301-496-2403. NIH.gov. National Park Service. 202-619-7111. NPS.gov. National Science Foundation. 4201 Wilson Boulevard. Number 3048. Arlington, Virginia 22230. 703-306-1182. 703-306-1234. 800-628-1487. NSF.gov. National Security Agency. 9800 Savage Road. Fort Meade, Maryland 20755-6000. 410-859-6444. 800-962-9398. NSA.gov. National Technical Information Service. Fairfax, VA. 703-487-4680. NTIS.gov. National Weather Service. Norfolk, VA. 804-441-3720. NWS.NOAA.gov. Navy Department. Secretariat/HQ. Civilian. Civilian Personnel Branch. Pentagon Division, Number 4D434. Washington, D.C. 20350-1000. Navy.mil. Navy. 2531 Jefferson Davis Highway. Number 430. Arlington, Virginia 22242. 703-607-1751/1752. 703-602-4190. Navy.mil. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Office of Personnel. Washington, D.C. 20555. NRC.gov. Office of Economic Growth. Bureau of Labor Statistics. U.S. Department of Labor. 601D St. N.W. Number 4000. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-606-5700. Stats.bls.gov. Tomorrow's Jobs in 250 Industries. Office of Management and Budget. 202-395-5892. Office of Museum Programs. Smithsonian Institution. 900 Jefferson Drive Southwest. Washington, D.C. 20560. 202-357-3101. Smithsonian.edu. Art Conservation and Museum Careers. Office of Personnel Management. Career America Connection. Rayburn Office Building. Washington, D.C. 20515. 202-225-4955. 202-606-2700. 912-757-3000R. OPM.gov. Office of Personnel Management. 1900 E Street, NW. Number 1447. Washington, D.C. 20415. OPM.gov. Office of the Secretary of Health. Rockville, MD. 301-443-1986. HHS.gov. Office of Special Targeted Programs. Employment and Training Administration. U.S. Department of Labor. 200 Constitution Avenue. NW. Number N4643. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-219-5904. DOL.gov. Jobs for seniors 55 and up. Office of Strategic Planning and Policy Development. Employment and Training Administration. U.S. Department of Labor. 200 Constitution Avenue. NW. Number N5637. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-219-7674. DOL.gov. Experimental Job Training Opportunities. Office of the Assistant Secretary for Employment and Training. U.S. Department of Labor. 200 Constitution Avenue. NW. Number S2321. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-219-6236. DOL.gov. Job Training and Employment Services. Office of Trade Adjustment Assistance. Employment and Training Administration. U.S. Department of Labor. 601 DST. NW. Number 6434. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-219-5555. DOL.gov. Office of Tribal Services. Bureau of Indian Affairs. U.S. Department of the Interior. 18th and C Streets, NW. Washington, D.C. 20240. 202-208-2570. DOI.gov/Bureau-Indian-Affairs. Indians and Job Training. Peace Corps. 1990 K St. NW. Number 4100. Washington, D.C. 20526. 800-424-8580. peacecorps.gov. Postal Rate Commission. 1333 H St. NW. Number 300. Washington, D.C. 20268. 202-789-6840. prc.gov. Records Administration Information Center. National Archives and Records Administration. 8th Street and Pennsylvania Ave, NW. Washington, D.C. 20408. 202-501-6015. nara.gov. Information and Records Management. Training. Securities and Exchange Commission. 450 5th St. Northwest. Number 20549. Washington, D.C. 20549. 202-272-2550. 202-942-8088. 202-272-3100R. sec.gov. Senate Placement Office. Hart Senate Office Building. Number 175. Washington, D.C. 20510. 202-224-9167. Senate.gov. yourcongress.com. Small Business Administration. Personnel Office. 409 3rd Street SW, number 4200. Washington, D.C. 20416. 800-827-5722. sba.gov. Smithsonian Institution. 955 L'Enfant Plaza, SW, number 2100. Washington, D.C. 20560. 202-927-8423. Smithsonian.edu. si.edu. Social Security Administration. 6401 Security Boulevard. Baltimore, Maryland 21235. 410-915-8882. ssa.gov. State, U.S. Department of 2201 C. St. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20520. 202-647-7284-R. 703-875-7490. State.gov. State Department. Civil Service Positions. Employment Information Office. Number 2819. 22nd and D Streets, N.W. Washington, D.C. 20520. State.gov. State Department. Foreign Service Positions. Recruitment Division. epub 9317. Rosslyn Station. Arlington, Virginia 22209. State.gov. Superintendent of Documents. Government Printing Office. Washington, D.C. 20402. 202-783-3238. gpo.gov/sa_docs. Many publications for many occupations, also. The books The Bottom Line, Basic Skills in the Workplace and Career Opportunities in Art. Museums, zoos, and other interesting places. The Director of Personnel. U.S. Securities and Exchange Commissions. 450 5th Street, N.W. Washington, D.C. 20549. 202-272-2550. sec.gov. Securities and Exchange Commission Jobs. Tennessee Valley Authority. Employment Services, ET5C50PK. 400 West Summit Hill Drive. Knoxville, Tennessee 37902. TVA.gov. Transportation, U.S. Department of 400 7th St. Southwest. Washington, D.C. 20590. 202-366-9391. DOT.gov. Treasury, U.S. Department of 15th St. and Pennsylvania Ave. N.W. Washington, D.C. 20220. 202-622-1470. Trees.gov. fms.trees.gov. U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs. 202-208-2682. doi.gov/bureau-indian-affairs. U.S. Coast Guard. U.S. Department of Transportation. Aeronautical Center. MPB 237, PO. Substation 18. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73169-6999. 405-680-4265. uscg.mil. dot.gov. US Department of Agriculture. Recruitment, PO Box 2417, Washington, D.C. 20013. USDA.gov. Forest Ranger Jobs. U.S. Department of Defense. Human Resource Service Center. Alexandria, Virginia 22333. 703-617-7178. hrsc.osd.mil/train. Defenselink.mil. U.S. Department of Energy. 1000 Independence Avenue, SW. Washington, D.C. 20585. 202-586-8800. 202-586-4333R. 202-586-8851. eia.doe.gov. foe.gov. energy.gov. U.S. Department of Labor. Mine Safety and Health Administration. 4015 Wilson Boulevard. Number 601. Arlington, Virginia 22203. 703-235-1452. msha.gov. U.S. Defense Nuclear Agency. 703-325-2120. Defenselink.mil. U.S. Department of Transportation. Central Employment Office. Office of Personnel. 400, 7th Street Southwest. Number 9113. Washington, D.C. 20590. 202-366-9417. DOT.gov. U.S. Food and Drug Administration. 301-443-1969. FDA.gov. U.S. Forest Service. 703-235 jobs. fs.fed.us. U.S. Geologic Survey. 703-648-7676. USGS.gov. U.S. House of Representatives. Placement Office. Ford House Office Building. Washington, D.C. 20515. House.gov/CAO-HR. United States Information Agency. Personnel Office. Special Services Branch. 301 4th Street SW number 525. Washington, D.C. 20547. 202-619-3732. USIA.gov. U.S. International Trade Commission. Office of Personnel. 500 EST. SW. Number 314. Washington, D.C. 20436. 202-205-2651. ITC.gov. U.S. Marine Corps. 703-697-7474. USMC.mil. U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Maritime Administration. U.S. Department of Transportation. Long Island, New York 11024. 516-773-5000. usmma.edu. U.S. Naval Surface Warfare Center. 703-663-8067. Navy.mil. US Postal Service. 475 L'Enfant Plaza SW. Number 1813. Washington, D.C. 20260. 800 Job USPS. 202-268-3218R. 202-268-3643. USPS.gov. Information concerning postal worker, postal inspector and executive positions within this branch of the federal government. US Public Health Corps. Office of Data Analyses and Management. Bureau of Health Professions. 5600 Fishers Lane No. 8-43. Rockville, Maryland 20857. phs.os.dhs.gov/phs/phs.html. Health-related jobs. U.S. Treasury Department. 202-745-8000. Trees.gov. U.S. Senate. Placement Office. SH-142B Hart Building. Washington, D.C. 20510. Senate.gov. Veterans Affairs. Healthcare Occupations. Veterans Health Services and Research Administration. Recruitment and Examining Division, 054E. 810 Vermont Avenue Northwest. Washington, D.C. 20420. VA.gov. Veterans Affairs, U.S. Department of. 810 Vermont Avenue. NW. Washington, D.C. 20420. 202-273-4950. VA.gov. Veterans Employment and Training Service. U.S. Department of Labor. 200 Constitution Avenue. NW. Number S1315. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-219-9116. DOL.gov. VA.gov. Veterans Employment and Training Help. Voice of America. 202-619-0909. VOA.gov. Washington Naval Yard. 202-433-4930. Navy.mil. Women's Bureau. U.S. Department of Labor. 200 Constitution Avenue. NW. Number S3309. Washington, D.C. 20210. 202-219-6652. 800-827-5335. DOL.gov. Women's Jobs in Highway Construction.